This is the Lost Man podcast, where we embrace the challenges and triumphs of being a modern man in the middle years. Join us as we explore the rugged path of growing older, wiser and bolder in a world that's constantly changing. I'm your host John.
And I'm Matt, and together we'll navigate this uncharted territory with grit, humour and a whole lot of heart. Right, welcome back to another episode of the Lost Man podcast, the podcast that is for all of us blokes that sometimes feel a little bit lost in life. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about health and diet, but first, Johnny, how's your week been?
Well, week's been pretty good. It's getting busier and busier. So obviously, God, I'll tell you what, that 2 months. So I've been off work. It's 2 months ago now since I left Clear.
Lightning.
And it's lightning fast, like you wouldn't believe. So the other job starts on the 4th of December, and it's so up in the air, isn't it? So with the British attire thing, really starting to get traction now, it's going to be an interesting crossover. And it's like, do I back myself and have no plan B and just go all in, which is what I'd like to do? But the reality of that is, well, the reality...
Got to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. The reality of the whole situation is got to pay the bills. And if I can go into this place on the 4th, now, there's obviously a potential for me to be pissing off a couple of people because, in theory, I'll go in there and not really stay for much longer than 3 or 6 months because hopefully British attire will be up and running. But
if that, mate, it could be, and that is like if you can avoid doing that, like it's a shitty thing to do because you kind of know necessarily not going to be there a long time.
I agree 100%, and it's like. But at the same time, so typically when you start somewhere, you'll have a 3-month probation, and the way I look at it is if I can get up and running with British attire in the first 3 months, then I can get out of there. I'll only have to give them a week's notice. Yes, it'll be difficult because it's a client-facing role, so they'll have to explain to the client why it is that I've come on the account and then left the account. But the way I've been kind of like rationalising it in my brain is, listen, this is the business world, and if something was to change at their end that meant that they had to, for whatever reason, not bring me on, then that'd just be the way that it goes. And it does work the other way around as well.
I'd say as well, if your boss or future boss has anything about them, I would respect that.
Yeah.
I would say, good bloke, obviously focusing on something like his own project that he's got going on, we wish him all the best.
Yeah, exactly.
And as long as you're polite about it.
I've done the typical me thing, which is like compound a load of different things, and they're all sort of starting to come into fruition because I've got that one that starts on the 4th of December. I've still got the other one that I originally got that starts on the 8th of January. So I've got to pull the trigger on those guys.
But it's better to have more options than...
Oh, God, it's one of those...
No options.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like a good problem to have. And then I've also got an interview on Thursday for a job with at Manchester Airport in looking after their retail marketing proposition. So anyway, it's all going on. Got brand calls all this week with British attire. I'm busy, but I'm good. The house is starting to come together now. So last week, managed to finish off the 2 rooms, managed to finish off the kitchen and the bedroom. So I've spent a lot of this past week just doing the sort of the nice bits, spending money, basically, on lamps and rugs and little kind of like things to bring it round. But it's been really, really nice. So got the whole sort of, got like the music studio set up, finished off, which was nice. I was able to spend some time in there last night, which, so for anybody listening, I have a fondness for music and use it as a bit of a meditation, sort of building music, playing music. And I was able to spend a good hour in there last night, which I've missed. It's been sort of 6 hours, and it really is one of those things where it just for whatever reason, and I'm sure, you know, other people have got other little creative pursuits that help them dial in, but for me, that whole sort of studio stuff, I can just lock into it for hours. It's one of the only things that can really, as I say, can really dial me in. So
I can relate to that because I feel like for me, I like to tinker around with editing and making videos and things, and it's exactly the same. I enjoy doing that on an evening. Don't get me wrong, I love gaming, but where gaming I don't feel like I've necessarily accomplished anything at the end of it. Like I enjoy it, and I can happily spend. If I get into a game, it can be very bad. Like I can really sink hours into it, but with editing, I kind of feel like I'm creating something, and it just even though it's almost very similar in a way, like it's just so. No, I get why you enjoy the music, the music. What is it like? Production, kind of just playing around with beats and
just mixing tracks together,
and just being creative, basically.
Just being creative, and the whole kind of like, because the way that I do it is, I spend a lot of time. I like it because it keeps me current. I spend a lot of time listening to new music, so I don't just jump into like the top 100 charts on Beatport. Like I'll go into like the newly released tracks and do like you used to do back in the days when vinyl was a thing, and just dig through stuff, you know, and you know, and listen to things, make choices on what to listen to because you like the name of something, or not just because I think what a lot of DJs, if you like, do is just, especially up and coming DJs, is they'll just get, you know, the best tracks that they've heard other DJs play that they can pull from the Beatport Top 100, but there's nothing really creative about that. Whereas what I've been doing, because, you know, like I've been doing this for a long time now, and you know, spent a lot of time trying to not just stick in one genre, like trying to make little projects that blend into different genres, and it's just I find it a bit more satisfying. It's more painstaking to do it that way because you are digging through you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks, and it takes a good, you know, I would say, I mean, I don't know, let's say it takes 3 or 4 evenings of about 4 hours each to just sit in it. But again, it's one of those things where I can just focus on it, you know, for whatever reason. You know, I couldn't really, there's not many other things that I could sit with like that and just dial into it. So yeah, so I've got a little bit of a project that I'd pulled together. So what I do is I'll you know, as I said, spend a couple of days, few days digging through the record box, pull together about 20 or 25 tracks, depending on what genre it is. It usually makes about an hour's worth of a mix. And then because the program software that I use is called Record Box, so you've either got Serato or Record Box, and I use Record Box just because, to be totally honest, when I bought the DDJ 1000, the Serato version of it was a couple of £100 more, and the Record Box one, I mean, I think, you know, it's one of those things, isn't it? You can get into all kinds of weird debates, and I would never use anything but Serato, and like every hobby.
Oh, mate, you want to go in with the affordable option first, and then if you want to go up. Yeah.
But it's like with any hobby, you know, like you have these things, like for example, you know, like mountain biking is your sport, and it's like, you know, not even on the radar to consider getting a road bike or anything like that, you know, and it's that kind of thing. But anyway, I chose, and what Record Box allows you to do is, of course, manage the music, but it allows you to sit in there and piece by piece build out your mix. So I'll do 3 or 4 days pulling down the tracks, then I'll get them into the I'll buy about 50 tracks and then refine that down to about 20 or 25, so it's about an hour. And what I do is I throw them into this, I forgot what it's called, it's like a preview mode, and you order everything by the key, that it's in, and then just find out what the first track is that you like, that's got the nicest build up, the nicest intro, and then build it in like a flow.
And you're basically creating a mix.
Creating a mix,
right?
Just creating a sequence of tracks that goes, but it's all in harmony. So it'll either run up or run down the key scale. So that's a nice process to sit there and you go, right, okay, well, this track, the intro track that I've got is in A minor. So what other tracks have I got in A minor or that sit adjacent to that key? And then you'll have 3 or 4, and then you'll kind of work out how they blend together, where the perfect place to blend those tracks in is, because you can mark it up in Record Box. And then after another couple of days, this can be a bit of a frustrating part of the process, because things work that shouldn't work and things don't work that should work, and you have to sit there and go through them. And sometimes even out of 50 tracks you can't find one that will fit in a place, so you have to go into your library but also
when you've finished, how do you feel about, like, does it make you feel fulfilled? Does it make you, do you feel like you make progress every time you do it in terms of your skill level?
Definitely, yeah. That's the cool thing. Like, very often you'll learn whether it's like a different way to play with the loops or a different way to use filters or whatever it might be. There's always, I would say, with every project, and on my Mixcloud, which is it's under the alias of Poles Apart, I have about
DJ Poles Apart.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? With the whole DJ thing. Like, I remember when I was a kid, and so. There's an act called Salado, and when I was younger, the guy Mark was a friend of mine, and I remember looking around at people like that and thinking, this is I love the heritage in the music industry that my childhood gave me, which was like, when you think about drum and bass as it is today and all those different kinds of sounds. Well, I was lucky enough to be on the front row for when all that stuff was starting to just emerge, like the early Hysteria days, Hysteria 15, 16 in the sort of mid to late 90s. And obviously even that was a progression from where it all started off, hardcore days way before my time, but still quite an early part of the explosion that is now the drum and bass scene. So I've forgotten the point that I was going on, but yeah, so you definitely, each time you make a mix, and I have about 20 or something on my Mixcloud, you learn something new.
I think that's a really vital part of any hobby, is that feeling of progression.
100%.
Or especially a hobby that really engages you.
Yeah.
I think feeling like you're making progression in terms of your skill level, your output. That's what really keeps me interested in things.
Definitely, yeah. And it's just I don't know what it is. I guess it keeps the mind engaged. But you said, what do I get out of it? So when I've sat with something, I've listened to a load of tracks, I've put a mix together, and I'm ready. What I then do is I'll kind of run through it about 5, 6, 7 times, however many times it takes to work out not just where to blend the tracks in, but how to play with them. Because the whole point for anybody listening, the whole point of mixing tracks is to make it seem as though you don't want to be able to really hear the joint. Not really, depending on what the genre is. If you're playing like dubstep or garage or something, and not kind of necessarily two-step garage, but more of the grimy side of garage, and it's very sharp and rough, and like, you're making lots of cuts across, and hip hop can be like that as well. But I think with the sort of the D&B that I like, which is still edgy but has a little bit of a liquid tone to it. You wanna, and my style as well is, I don't really, I use drop work a lot, but I tend to keep the bass lines or the drops from both tunes playing, if that makes sense, and try and make one drop, one bass line out of it, if that makes sense. And And so I'll kind of like have, which I don't find you see a lot in drum and bass. You hear a lot of that in house music where it's like these beautiful 2 or 3 minute blends, but you don't really hear it in drum and bass. And I because I started off in drum and bass and then went into garage and then went into house music, and I'm kind of, I feel like I'm bringing that house music style into drum and bass, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's been cool, and do I get a lot out? I get a lot out of like, I feel happy when I'm like, when it's done and I'm ready to sit down with it and start recording.
Do you post it anywhere, or do you just do it for personal?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I stick it on Mixcloud. I don't do any promotion whatsoever. I've quite often thought about, because it would be quite easy to, you know, get into production and send it to Mark and see what happens. But the problem is, I almost, and I've had people say to me in the past, you know, about the mixes that I've made, and they've listened to them and they've been like, you know, these are really good, you should do something with them. And I'm a bit like reticent, and I often think to myself, you know, when we think about side hustles, I'm like, why don't I just do something along this line? Well, the answer is, first of all, what I've realised over the years of the people that I know that are in that industry is it takes a certain kind of person to do that kind of thing. And it's not just about can you actually do it, it's about can you apply yourself to the industry. And I'm not that taken with the whole, you know, you've got a million people around you but not many friends, and it's a lot of that.
It's also like, do you want to live in the party scene?
Yeah, exactly.
And people that I know that have worked in that scene, like I worked for a club when I was 18 for a few years, loved it, but it isn't something that I would want to do now, you know.
Definitely
it's antisocial hours.
And when you start getting, I mean, I use Mark as a reference again, you know, I mean, he's pretty much, and he was always going to be who he is, you know, like when I think back to what it was like hanging around as a kid, like he always, how can I describe it, like he was sending me, or should I say he was giving me, like we were all listening to like hip hop, and we bought Snoop Dogg Doggy Style, and you listened to all those kinds of albums and the Cypress Hill Black Sunday tape and all that kind of stuff, but he'd be listening to Body Count and Onyx and people that were just a little bit more off the beaten track, and because of that a lot cooler. And then and it was a guy called Andy Lees who had a pair of belt drive turntables, and he had like the vinyl super sharp shooter and the DJ Hype Fuji's remix and stuff like that, and it was just the coolest thing in the world. And then from the back of that, I remember Mark bought some decks, and we just used to spend a lot of time sitting around playing tracks. But he, you know, talking before about do you learn something, like a lot of the tips and tricks that I have on the turntables now, just like little chops and little ways of separating out the beats in the mix, come from things that he just did, and he always had that technical skill.
Well, mate, remember as well, we're from an era of no YouTube to learn things.
Yeah, exactly.
So where did you learn those things? You'd have to go and basically meet somebody and watch somebody do it and try and pick it up that way.
Yeah. And I tell you something, I really reminisce fondly about those days, about you know, I mean, like what, sort of 13 years old, getting up, get on the train, you know, go to Manchester City Centre, go to Eastern Bloc, go to the Spin-In, you know, like you thought you were the coolest person in the world have you seen that have you seen that scene on Human Traffic when he goes, got any jungle guy, and it's like that, and then they pull out the white labels from underneath, and it was all about having a promo or a white label and not just the one, and you only got that if you knew the guy in there, you know, and there was that whole thing about it. And then and also, you know, not just buying vinyl but buying tape packs as well, and like learning about new music, like you say, because there was no digital music. It was like you'd get a tape pack, and you'd listen.
You have to go into the go into the record store and just listen to a load of tunes. Yeah,
and that's it. And they'd have a bunch of 1210s around, and you'd sit there with your little stack of vinyl, and you'd buy like 3 or 4, and you'd take those home and you'd incorporate them with the collection that you already had. Something devastating happened to me when I was a kid. I used to take my decks round to this guy called Ron's house. Big up Ronad, wherever you are in the world, you mad guy. But I never forget, there was a guy called Jamie something, and he was like one of the hard kids, and he stole all my records when I was a kid, and there was nothing I could do about it because he was, this boy about town. Just took him, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I had some. When I think back to those, I mean, at the time it was devastating, but now when I think back to what pieces of art were in that collection, it's just like, oh God, like the Shimon and Andy C and all kinds of stuff, but. Yeah, man. So anyway, completely off topic. The studio's up and running back at home. The week's been pretty good, and yeah, I've just been chilling this past gone weekend. How's your week been?
Week's been fine. I'm not a lot to report, to be honest, on my side. Made a few little videos for YouTube and had a nice few little outings with little man, and a little bit of injury progress on the wrist, out of full arm splint into mini arm splint. So the road to recovery. I know this is like the road to recovery is. I can see it now a little bit.
Nice.
Because 7 weeks in a full splint was pretty. It was killing me, to be honest, and
you seem a lot better in yourself.
I feel a little. I had a bit of a, I had a bit. You have little ups and downs. I had a little down day the other day, and my missus said to me, she was like, you got to take days as they come. 100%. I suppose in life anyway, you got to take days as they come, and this is such a little win.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking last week about wins and like celebrating the wins, but this is such a little win. But obviously, because I've been in a full splint, I've not had a proper shower. I've had a bag. I've had a bag shower, so I've had to tie a bloody plastic bag around my arm. So like obviously my arm pretty cheesy arm.
Yeah.
Even though giving it like a bit of a wipe and whatnot, but finally out of that and into a splint that you can take on and off, and like this week, huge win for me was just having a proper hot shower.
I bet that was amazing.
Mate, it was absolutely incredible. It was probably one of the best showers I've had in all my life.
Honestly, that's similar to that feeling as like there's a few things in life like that, aren't there? Like it's beautiful to go away on holiday, but that feeling of your first time in your bed when you get back is just you almost look forward to that in a weird way as much as you do the holiday.
So that's going on. One thing I have felt, well, me and Jins have come across this week is we're obviously doing this van build project, and we planned our layout. There's made a video on it, everything, and we're having full second doubts,
really?
Yeah, just about the layout, not the whole project,
right.
Just the layout of the van, because that layout is the layout that Jins has had in her mind for 4 or 5 years, basically. But now we've got little man. It's like, is that layout functionally going to work for us as a family of 3, possibly 4 next year? She wants another one, so
so you're having another one.
So not yet, but probably so it's just whether we just, because once you start, like obviously there's lots you can do.
It's a cost. You want to get it right.
You kind of want to get it right, and you can swap things around. So we've just been really toying with that the last day or two. Kind of running. We're going to remeasure it out, remark it out, and see where we fall with that.
Is it looking like it's going to be a more expensive build?
Yes,
this new way?
It is. Yeah,
because
we've got we weren't having side pods, and now we might have to have side pods.
What's a side pod?
Side pods are those things on the side of the van where you cut out a window-sized hole, cut one of the panels out, and you bond a pod on, which extends the width of the van by an extra 6 inches. So if you do it on both sides, you can basically sleep across the van.
Have the new Defenders got those in?
No, they've just got kind of
they've got like a box
little
on
storage
the side.
box, which you see round here, and you're like, expedition storage box to go into Sheffield.
Yeah.
So pretty good week, really. Pretty low key though.
Yeah.
Not an awful lot to report.
Have you been watching anything? Any series? Any sport? There was a Grand Prix on yesterday.
I'm not telling you what we've just finished, that series.
Selling Sunset.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh God.
I know. They got me with it. Well, got me and Jin. Well, Jin's likes it anyway, but they got us with it. Like season 1 is like about property, which is interesting looking at those types of houses.
Yeah.
And then obviously now it's just bitch fights and cat fights, but
it's like adult crack, isn't it? It's like somehow the producers of the Teletubbies and stuff know how to tune into babies.
Probably about half of our male audience just switched straight off.
Yeah. Well, no, because they're probably in the same position where their missus started watching it, and then they go, I'm not watching it. Watch 2 episodes, and then you're hooked.
Yeah.
Because it's adult crack.
Yeah.
And it's the same with things like, anything like that. I mean, if you remember the days of the Big Brother. When that first came
that's
out,
still going. I haven't watched that since I was about 17, 16.
Yeah. But I watched the highlights. I've not watched any Grand Prix for ages, and it was kind of weird because a lot of the names I'm unfamiliar with. But as I was watching it, so this is a Las Vegas Grand Prix, and as I was watching it, I was thinking, do you know what? This is actually evolved. Because it got a bit of a hard rap for a while, the Grand Prix. And I feel like it's actually really quite exciting now. Because what's happened is you've got the new breed, so Verstappen, Norris, these kinds of people who
Russell.
who are taking up the top of the pack. But then it's also really interesting down the middle of the pack, because it always just used to be, Alonso, Bottas, Hamilton at the front, and then you never really knew what was going on at the back, and you didn't care.
Yeah.
But whereas now you've got this new breed who are up the front and scrambling, then you've got the OGs who are sort of middle to the back and they're scrambling, and they often come to the front as well. And there's this real exciting kind of there's excitement more or less all the way through the pack, which is cool.
I've always been into F1, always loved
Great
it,
sport.
always watched it as a kid. Watched it probably into my late teens, early 20s, and then I would say mid late 20s, just not interested at all.
Why?
I don't know. I think it just was there an element of Hamilton. Remember, Hamilton and Mercedes have won. Well, with Nico Rosberg, they won 8 titles in a row. Yeah. Hamilton 7. I'm pretty sure Nico Rosberg won.
Right.
And then it's just is it a bit samey? But also I just think the coverage wasn't very good. And I think what's really propelled it recently is that Drive to Survive series.
Just about to say the same thing.
And also,
brilliant.
Obviously, because they sold, Bernie Ecclestone sold it to Liberty Media.
Right.
And they have. Before then, there was no real social media presence. There was no, it was quite literally on TV.
Yeah.
And that was it. Whereas I actually very rarely watched the full race.
Yeah.
But I love consuming all of the content that I like watching Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
I like watching all the content around it, the build up. It's much easier to consume it just to watch a 10-minute qualifying session on YouTube as opposed to tuning into 3 hours of qualifying. So I'd say that's why it's got a little bit more popular. But also, I think you're right. There's this new breed of drivers coming through.
Totally, and it makes it really exciting. I can remember the days, because it's a bit of a nostalgic one, because it was like as a family, we were never really into the football or into the rugby or anything like that. It was always the Grand Prix that Dad was into. And in those days, you've got to think, it was terrestrial TV, it was races from around the world, so he'd be staying up to watch the races at like 2 a.m. and stuff like that. So there's a real nice nostalgic part to it. But I think the way that because he would be able to sit down and watch the whole Grand Prix, whereas for me, I'm just as happy to consume the off-the-track politics, the mechanical side of things that's distributed through social media that you can just pull from anywhere, and then get the highlights of the race and do it in that way. Yeah, and it was wicked to watch it again this week actually, and see some of the, it's such a stark contrast from the last time that I watched it. It must be maybe 5 years ago or something like that, and just things like, like the tech. So it was the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's obviously a street race.
New race.
First year
of the race. Right? Yeah.
And it was cool to see just things like the crash barrier tech. So Lando Norris had a crash. I forget how many laps in it was. But it was, a flip out at high speed.
I saw the crash.
Yeah.
I didn't see what I saw. It almost just, was it a malfunction, or was it just like just because he was just going down a straight, wasn't he?
He came round a corner and just something happened. I don't know.
Got a little bit squirrely.
But they do the like the cockpit view, and you're just like, oh my god! Like, I mean, it's absolutely solid, and the driver doesn't look like he's in any danger whatsoever. But can you imagine going? This is the cool thing about those people, and I think that F1 drivers, despite being in a machine the whole time, are some of, if not the fittest of all of the athletes.
Oh mate, have you seen some of the diameters of their necks?
No.
Like, just think about the G-forces that they have to.
Yeah. That's interesting. Actually.
Yeah, mate, and when they come back last minute, like if a driver crashes, or like Ricardo broke his hand, and then somebody, that young American lad, I think it is, came to take his place. His neck won't be up to speed. Right. It was the same with the Haas driver. I forget his name, but he came back last minute, right? And he said it takes him a couple of races to get. That's your mad, neck. Isn't it? I know, crazy.
And there's no real way to train. You've seen
for
them
that. Doing, yeah, they do. They have like, it's like some kind of bondage setup. It's just like a strap around the head, and they're just kind of pulling the tower.
Oh, I
see.
The stack. Right. Yeah. I have seen people in the gym doing that, where they sort of hang over the edge of a bench and they have a strap and they kind of like lift their head up like that. I think it's important for jiu-jitsu. There was a fight that our friend Will sent me a few weeks ago. I think it was Cyborg, and there's no difference between where his ears start and his shoulders, and it's like, bloody hell.
Just going back to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, I thought it was obviously it was a new race, and I thought there was quite a lot of controversy around it though. Did you see that Carlos Sainz hit a manhole cover on the first lap, on the basically the first 8 minutes of practice,
right?
And that put a little bit of controversy on it, and people kind of slating it. But what I would say is, you have to remember that with it, they've built that track within a year.
Right.
So that only got announced last year.
Crazy. And
they've built a track. They've built the infrastructure, like the pit stops and stuff. And there's been quite a lot of controversy around it, quite a bit of negativity. I know that like they had to kind of close half of Las Vegas, and they've. I mean, I think it's a brilliant achievement that they've put that track in place. They've put the show on, but it did appear that Formula One, and Liberty Media were a little bit greedy with it all. I read that they'd put shuttering up so that you couldn't see the race from anywhere unless you bought a ticket, basically. So like any public space that could see the track got shuttered up,
which is nuts.
It's just like, come on, if it's a city race, yes, sell your tickets, put your grandstands up, but people are going to watch it. And I just felt like that was a little bit of a greedy side to it that I didn't really like.
It's a shame,
I know they've got to make their money, and
mate, they're making money,
and hopefully they are making money, mate. But there is a lot of talk that it isn't as like F1 teams aren't like. It's only the top teams that are profitable.
That makes sense.
So, although they spend millions, probably billions of pounds, it's got to be profitable. And then I think my other big takeaway from it was Max Verstappen. I will hold my hand up and say I am not a Max Verstappen fan particularly. He's just a bit miserable.
Yeah.
I just think he's a bit miserable. And he's been saying all week that the Grand Prix is 1% sporting event, and 99%. I can't remember the words he used, but like 99% a show.
Right.
And I just think as the driver that is winning has won the championship this year, show some solidarity, show some support. That in F1, yes, it's not going to be one of the best drivers tracks that on the circuit. It's not going to be Silverstone, but put your support behind it, because maybe these tracks that earn more income and more kind of eyes on the sport are good for the sport generally.
It's a difficult one, because I agree with you, and I think that they should be better representatives, but there's also a school of thought which is these people, they're so rebellious, and you don't get much more of a lone wolf sport than Formula One. And I think go on. I think with when I think back through time, if you think about Ayrton Senna, for example, he was always bucking against the institution, wasn't he? And sort of like, and there was almost something, I don't know, endearing about that. But then also, what's the name of the guy? I always forget his name. Oh God, the German bloke in the Ferrari.
Schumacher.
No, after him. More recent.
Barrichello.
Was always head to head with Hamilton. Oh God, blonde hair.
Oh, Rosberg.
No, the other one.
Don't know.
Oh,
Ferrari driver.
I think he's in a Ferrari now. He was Red Bull for a bit, and he was like champion. He was a champion, very very serious bloke, and I think
that's
he won.
Verstappen. Surely.
No.
Last year they had, or the year before they had.
Generation before Verstappen.
Don't know. No idea, mate. I've lost you.
You do know who I mean.
Cut, edit, section out.
No. Because what's he called? Hang on a second. We haven't got
Alonso.
We haven't got no, but in the same area as Alonso. Sorry, people, we haven't got a Jamie to look things up for us.
Yeah. Jamie, can you just?
Yeah. Blub, blub, blub. Anyway, the point being, there'll be people listening to this, if there is anybody listening to this, screaming at their radios now.
Mate, I don't know. We have listeners. We have listeners on YouTube.
Oh yeah, we got 15 listeners.
We had 30 listeners.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, across the two episodes.
Yeah.
Start small.
Anyway, he was always a bit of to put it bluntly, a bit of an arsehole. And then after he'd won a couple of championships and the kind of that competitive edge drifted away from him, and he was more in it for the sort of the fun of it or whatever, he became a much nicer bloke. And I think, the pressure that Verstappen's under. But
he's not under any pressure this year. I have to.
Is he not?
You're not under pressure when your car is light years ahead of other people's.
Yeah. What gets me with these drivers as well is how, talking about how healthy they are, and we'll use that as a segue into what we're going to be talking about. But just quickly before we move into that, when you hear them talk on the radio, it's like 200 miles an hour, and they're just like, I think this is happening. I think that's going on, and it's like, I bet their blood pressure's like 60 beats
Yeah,
per
it will
minute.
be.
You know,
Yeah.
just chilling.
Just chilling, yeah, not bothered.
And it's this kind of like
Chatting away.
And, you know, talking before about what we were saying before about the music and DJing and stuff, like, I can remember thinking, you know, like, there's only a certain level, or I can only get so good, and I've been doing it for so long, but there's levels to that, because there's, you know, how quickly your brain fires and how how dexterous you are.
They probably got the best reactions.
Oh God,
on the planet.
But it's all, I think, with that sport as well. I think it's all flow state.
It's
all instinct.
Yeah, what amazes me is when they're racing close quarters, and they're just, you know, they're doing like 200 miles an hour into a corner or down a straight, and they're millimeters from the car next to them. I mean, you touch cars at that speed.
Yeah.
Insane.
And especially on these street races, and it's crazy. I can't believe that guy's name's I'm so bad. I mean, on the last one we recorded, I think I called Tom Aspinall, the MMA fighter, Darren Aspinall, who's a guy that was some guy that I knew years and years ago.
It's easily done.
Oh, by the way, just on that, Tom Aspinall, I saw something the other day, because he's the next big thing. I saw something the other day about his past 6 fights have all been first round knockouts, and each one of them doesn't equate to the length of a full 3 round.
Oh wow. Well, also on that topic, and I sent you the link for this. I'll have to just find it to tell people to listen to. But if you get a chance, Tom Aspinall did an interview with a girl.
I've seen it. It's brilliant.
With a girl, I can't remember her name.
She's great. She's hilarious. She's a little bit like that British girl who did, you know, sort of dead behind the eyes comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I just want to get her name, Nina Drama.
Yeah.
That Nina Drama interview with Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
All I will say is just listen to that all the way through. Possibly the best interview, the funniest interview.
Definitely funny.
The funniest interview. The funniest interview I've ever listened to. Yeah. I'm not even going to ruin it for people, because
don't give any sound bites,
people
just
to
go and listen to it.
Go and listen to it.
And Tom's great, isn't he?
He's humble guy.
Normal bloke.
Big win for him.
And I think he's a serious contender for the belt.
Yeah.
In that weight division. But you know, they're really healthy blokes. The F1 drivers are really healthy blokes. And speaking about health, I'll start off by something personal that happened to me at the weekend. So I went out with George, and you know, so I've not had a drink now for 4 months, and you know, not because I was particularly into drink, just because I've got a lot going on, and it all started off with just having a couple of weeks off, and then a couple of weeks turned into a month, and then a month turns into 2, and then before you know it, it's 4. And a little bit of a milestone, because I went to a club event with our friend George Wazi on Friday. We went to see Barry Can't Swim, and yes, we were the oldest people in there, but you know, that's life. And didn't have a drink at all, even to the point where, and I was a little bit worried about it. Not worried, but I was like, oh, go on, you can have a drink. And then I was like, no, but I really don't want to. And it gets to the point where it's like almost like you versus the time scale that you've got behind you. You know, it's like, well, why would I when I've got 4 months in the bag? And we got to the bar in the club, and they didn't have any 0%. Now, if anybody's thinking about quitting drinking for a bit, 0% beers scratch the itch. They do. And it's a great substitute. And as soon as I realised, I was really surprised that they didn't have any 0%, not anything.
Most places do.
Most
have
places do.
0%
Yeah. So I was like, and I stopped myself getting a beer and just got a couple of cans of Ting, basically grapefruit Ting, and stood there, had just as good a time. But what I'm noticing about not drinking, not really had any sort of like, not lost any weight per se, because I've you stop one thing and then substitute it with a bar of chocolate every night. But definitely the cognitive benefits. But I think it's a good thing for anybody out there to do that takes their health seriously.
I think if anybody is looking to lose weight and is thinking about their diet, I think one of my friends who's a trainer,
Yeah.
like the first big thing he says to people is like, how much are you drinking? Because it's like hidden calories, like hundreds of hidden calories in cans of lager,
bottle of wine. Is
you have a couple of beers or a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
You're talking a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 calories. You go out for a big night, you're talking a couple of thousand calories.
Totally.
So
not to mention the burger that you get on the way home, or if you sat at home having a glass of wine, that cheese on toast you have at 11 o'clock or whatever. We all do it.
Or a full size bar of chocolate.
No problem.
I still like a beer. I probably just have a couple of beers at the weekend. Of an evening.
Yeah.
Don't go too. I kind of one or two scratches the itch. But I certainly haven't, since having Benji, I certainly haven't got the energy to go out and get levered too often.
Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? The hangovers are
because
just
I just
insane.
I just can't, like, looking after a little one and functioning
horrendous
is one, horrendous, and two, not fair on them if you're just kind of hanging out and they're, they want to play and they're full of beans and you're just like, it's like a go-to.
Can't be bothered.
Stick the TV on. It's not fair. It's not nice. So generally just have a couple. And mate, the problem is though, the less you drink, the less you can drink.
Yeah.
And like when we've been out for beers before, I mean, we went out in the summer in Manchester for a load of beers. I don't know, probably not even that many. I was probably 6 or 7 we had over maybe 6 or 7. I think
something like that.
I was probably the roughest I've felt in a long time.
The roughness is the thing that puts me off, and this is why I did it. Because I just had a Saturday that I needed to do something. When I think I just had 4 Bud Lights on the Friday night, and I woke up on the Saturday just like, don't want to do any of the things I need to do. Had to do them. It was a pain. It was a struggle. Didn't train, and I was like, this is not worth it. Has your because obviously Virginia, your wife, didn't drink throughout the pregnancy, of course. And has she gone back to it now?
No, she hasn't, because of breastfeeding.
Yes.
So she's got a purpose there.
Yeah.
So she gave up. She didn't have a drink. Obviously, once we made the decision to start trying, we actually did a little bit of a cleanse. So
nice.
we did kind of nearly. I didn't do. She was stricter than me, but probably toned down drinking for up to probably 3 to 6 months before. I think I was still having like now a couple of beers basically, but not going silly. And then she just not bothered by it really now, and she has like occasionally she's like, oh, that beer smells nice. I'll have a little sip of that.
Sip of it,
But she's trying to wean off breastfeeding now, so I'm sure she'll have a drink, but
it definitely gets to the point where, like, I can remember a few weeks ago, like my resolve when I was thinking about the fact, like, what's coming up where I'm going to want to have a drink. I was a little bit more like, it's going to be difficult to get through Christmas having a drink, but now, the longer you do it, the more it compounds. Now I'm just like, and especially going to that thing on Friday night.
You proved that you can do it. Quite
happily. And it was kind of weird. Like, I'm not on a high horse. I enjoy getting messed up as much as the next person. But also, there was something funny about watching not just everybody in the club, but the guy that I was with, progressively get more and more sloppy, more and more like, oh yeah, mate.
Yeah, but mate, that is like, that's like when I met Gins.
Yeah.
So when I met Gins, we were, I think we'd met already, and we'd arranged to meet at it was in Sheffield at Crystal I think it was Tuesday nights were like the night to go to Crystal, and we'd gone to Crystal and we'd agreed to meet, and I was getting absolutely leathered, like absolutely leathered. She was I was buying her drinks. Vodka apple juice was her jam back then. And I was getting really twatted. I remember being at the bar and doing the old like elbow on the bar and then like slipping off multiple times. And then it got to the end of the night and she was like, "Oh, do you want a lift home?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you driving?"
Yeah.
I was like, "You driving drunk?" She was like, "No, I've just not been drinking the drinks you've been buying me."
Yeah. It's funny because I'll never forget.
So made a full dick of
she's
myself.
a legend. I remember when we went to that Sonny Fodera night at Gorilla in Manchester. This is going back about, must be 3 or 4 years
10,
now.
mate. Probably like 8.
No.
It's probably 7.
Well,
pre-COVID.
do you know what? You might be right,
pre-COVID.
actually. You might be right.
I bet it's 6 or 7 years.
It's frightening, isn't it? But we were all, heavily involved with the evening, and she just was, and this was a club event, and we were all dancing around, and she was just sober as a judge. Craziness.
Yeah.
You're but the one thing that I've always sort of admired about you is you're really disciplined with your diet, way more disciplined than I can be. Where's your diet up to at the moment?
Well, I think just like as advice to anybody about diet, I think what you have to think is what are you feeding what you're feeding your body will directly impact your mood, your energy levels, and if you feed it shit, it will feel like shit.
It's 100% true when people say you are what you eat.
You are what
everything.
You
your
are.
Skin,
you are
the way that you feel, your mental health.
Yeah, it's all linked together.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think it's very easy to get into a loop, like a negative loop, and you think, "Oh, I'm tired. I'll grab that like sausage roll and pasty at lunch because I'm knackered at work or whatever," and then your that high carb intake makes you feel even more sluggish and tired, and really you just get stuck in this loop of eating shit because you feel like shit, so you eat more sugary shit. But my diet at the moment, I'm very much a man of routine, like almost to kind of like OCD levels.
Okay.
Like I kind of like to do and eat the same things quite regularly. I think actually probably too much information. I suffer with a little bit of IBS. So that's one of the reasons why I really started to refine my diet kind of like 10 years ago. But and
did you go through like a process of elimination?
Tried to. I also found that eating kind of similar meals helped with my body's digestion of them. So whereas if you introduce new foods, that could upset your stomach. But it's at a pretty good place now. But that is because I have a pretty consistent diet where I eat certain things. I avoid lots of things like onion and garlic. Which
I was just about to say, like I can like remember when you first told me, and I'd never realised that something like onion and garlic,
mate.
But lots of people have.
Mate, lots of people probably don't even realise it's probably not a big issue to them. But for me, it's just like curry from the curry house is just. I mean, it's amazing, but it is just devastation for the nation. So for me, my diet at the moment looks a little bit like I have a shake in the morning, which has lots of like healthy organic fruits in it, like a greens mix, a bit like AG1 but not AG1. And things like ginger. So lots of oats as well, which are good for blokes, bowels, and also prostate cancer, future-proofing yourself for prostate cancer. And then I like to have a collagen coffee, so marine collagen or beef collagen. Marine collagen is awful, tastes horrible, so maybe stick with the beef collagen to start with. But again, hair, nails, joints, things like that, skin, really good for that. And then for lunch, I do eat carbs. I don't not eat carbs. I think you need carbs to run, but just not too many because they make you feel tired if you plow into them. For lunch I have something like just maybe eggs on toast, poached eggs on toast, something like that. Maybe a salad. I do find when I'm teaching, going no carbs means I have like a more consistent energy level.
Really?
Sorry, no carbs in the sense of like breads or wheats, but I will have bananas and apple, like fruit-based carbs.
Yeah.
And then for dinner, we just eat like healthy meals. You know, we try not to load too heavily on the meat side of things. We do eat meat, but more from just a cost perspective.
Yeah.
We do generally eat organic. We made a decision to eat organic because I get a bit freaked out about kind of like background chemistry and the amount of shit that people put on food to make it grow. You know, that is being directly translated into your diet. And, you know, I would be willing to bet the number of health issues people suffer with that are from background chemistry, not just in food, but like deodorants, stuff.
Folic acid is the big one to get out of your food. Yeah, choose foods that haven't got that in it, and you know, don't come to this podcast if you're looking for scientific explanations for lots of things. But yeah, do your own research on folic acid and try and choose foods that haven't got that in it. Yeah.
But you know, dinner we just eat healthy, like shepherd's pie. Again, I think one big thing is you can think you're eating healthy, but you're not eating healthy because you're still buying processed foods. So if you think, oh, I'm making a lasagna or I'm making a shepherd's pie, but you're buying the sauce for that shepherd's pie, that sauce is full of sweeteners, sugars, enhancers to make it nice. Whereas if you cook, you know, if you essentially cook everything from raw ingredients, you will, you know, cut out a lot of kind of nasty chemicals and sugars, but also it's just a much healthier option for you. I think it's easy to forget when you buy processed foods. You can think you're not buying processed foods, but you are still buying processed foods. You know, just with seasonings and stocks and stuff like that. It's all processed. The more refined and processed it is, the worse it is for you.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's really it. You know, I eat a lot of bananas. I try to eat a lot of fruit and vegetables each day. Just try to mix it up, but generally just eat a very simple diet, clean diet. My other big tip is I call it 5-2, but it's not 5-2. I believe there is a diet called the 5-2 diet, but for me it's just in the midweek super clean, and then at the weekend let yourself have treats. Yeah, because you can't you know, you can't not have nice food to eat. You know, eating really good food is mega. So. And you can't just go without completely. So if you eat super clean in the week, then treat yourself at the weekend. And actually, quite often, if you go fully into bad food at the weekend, you get to Sunday and you're like, actually, you know what? I want to eat some clean food. Yeah.
It's funny how that happens. I'll never forget when me and an old girlfriend of mine we did a tour of the west coast of the United States, California trip from San Diego. California. It was amazing. All the way up from San Diego. Trip. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All the way up from San Diego up to San Francisco, across to Lake Tahoe, down to Yosemite, through Death Valley, all the way back down and to Vegas, and then flew home. And obviously when we got there, we got to San Diego, and the drive up the Pacific Coast Highway, it was like, right, well, I want to try a Jack in the Box, I want to try a Wendy's, I want to try an In-N-Out, I want to try a thing, and all this. And by the time we got to San Francisco, it felt like we had a hangover from the lack of nutrients and the lack of everything. And I just couldn't stomach any more of that processed rubbish.
I always feel like that. When we go on holiday, like depending where you go, or like when we drove down to France this year, you know, driving down, you're eating out, staying in hotels or Airbnbs, buying lunch, eating out at night, and by the time we got to the villa where we were staying, I was just thinking, I'm so looking forward to cooking some food, just some simple, plain, like bit of meat on the barbecue, salad, perfect.
Yeah.
Five Guys, mate, is another. Like, I love a Five Guys.
Good.
You know, Five Guys to
best.
me is what I think you think McDonald's should be like.
Yeah.
You know, the five. But my God, is it like I feel like a mummified pharaoh the day after. Like, it's like I feel so dehydrated from the salt content in Five Guys must be hectic.
Oh, ridiculous.
But it is nice.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah.
And speaking about that America trip, even having gone there and done the whole in and out and everything, even there was a restaurant, Gordon Ramsay's burger joint called Burger, Bugr. Out of all of those, Five Guys is still the best, and that's UK Five Guys, you know. But it's funny, like, speaking about diet, and diet's a weird word, isn't it? But, you know, the older I get, the more and more I realise across the entire human landscape, whatever subject you want to talk about, it's all about the individual and what's relevant to that person. And I was listening to something recently about this test that you can do, which is called a methylation test. And if you don't know, which I didn't know until a few days ago, but I'll say it now as if I'm some kind of expert, methylation is basically whenever you take any kind of nutrient in your body, the body does not use that nutrient in its original format. It transports it into something else. So the example that I could give you is when we pull oil out of the ground, you can't put that directly into your car and use it as a fuel.
Refined.
It has to be turned into something else. And that's what the process of methylation is. And what you can do by having one of these methylation tests, and from what I've read, they're about £500 or £600 each or something like that. But you only have to do it once. And what you do is you find out where the positives and negatives are in your own specific methylation. Right. So it's like what macronutrients are you able to take in and, you know, get the most benefit from, and equally what are you just taking in and not methylating and just weeing out or whatever. And the thing that I was listening to was talking about how intrinsic that is to absolutely everything that you do. And there's all these different ways that you can kind of say, oh, well, I'll do you know, a 5-2, or I'll do Weight Watchers, or I'll do a carnivore diet, or whatever else it is. Whereas it really is, you know, that is, and it works. You know, there's no question that it doesn't work if your goal is to stay trim or keep your body fat low. But there's so many, I think, like you said before, you are what you eat. I think that what you take and what you consume in your body has such an impact on literally every aspect of your life. And I'm talking as an ADHD, as a diagnosed ADHD person, who a child diagnosis and an adult diagnosis. I think even things like that can be more to do with the way that your body is methylating the things that you're, or not methylating, that if the case may be, the things that you're taking into your body.
Well, this links into what I was saying about us having, you know, doing a bit of a cleanse before and deciding to switch to organic food, because I feel that although that it's not fully backed by science, I was very conscious that what you eat and put into your body, does that transfer into your child?
100%.
So that's why we decided to do a bit of a cleanse and really clean up our diet, and also start shopping organic, even though and that was why we cut down our meat consumption, not because I like eating meat. It was because of a cost thing. So we're going to eat organic, but that means that we can now not eat meat every night because of the cost of buying organic meat. So we have like once or two, buy a full chicken and use that for 2 or 3 meals you can get out of that. So that's just,
I think there's a lot in that. I think, and this is probably a podcast of its own, but I think there's loads that you pass on, including previous traumas from life, and stuff like that.
Well, they reckon that there's a fat gene. Like if you are overweight
I'm sure.
and you get pregnant, that is passed on to your kid. Yeah.
Right, that makes sense, doesn't it? I think there's a lot that we probably don't understand, and me and you definitely don't understand.
But generally, the human race has only kind of scratched the surface of how those correlate.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Like because you think to yourself, like I remember when just a couple of days ago I started reading about this methylation test, and I was like, bloody hell, £500 or £600. But I'll happily spend $2,000 on a mountain bike, and it's like the balance is way out. And I'm definitely thinking.
Well, it's the same with like supplements.
Yeah,
you know, people like we spend probably I buy mine almost annually.
Yeah.
So I'll buy 360 ZMAs.
Yeah.
So 60, 70 quid or whatever, which seems like a lot of money, but it is once.
Yeah.
And so I do have some supplements, not very many, like quite specific ZMA, vitamin B. I take a little bit of vitamin C if I'm feeling run down, or with collagen, because it helps your body to absorb the collagen better.
Nice.
That's why that collagen I gave you comes with its collagen with vitamin C. It's because it helps the absorption.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just some like cod liver oils for your joints and things like that. More longevity stuff, really. One thing I was going to say, because you were saying that you wanted to like refine your diet a little bit at the moment. You were also saying how you'd kind of switched one vice for another. So not having a beer on an evening, replacing it with a bar of chocolate or something sweet, because it's like something, because chocolate in itself releases endorphins. I also like chocolate in the evening, but where I've gone with that is organic dark chocolate. And when you first start it, you're a bit like, oh, it's a little bit bitter, but actually once you're locked in, you have a little bit of that, it's actually fine. And again, it's not that bad for you. It's got quite a lot of what's that? Like blueberries, antioxidants. Chocolate. So
dark chocolate for sure. I think I've definitely fallen into a bit of a habit of, and I almost get to the point where I crave it in the same way that when I used to have a cigarette, I used to think, and then you get that thought into your head, and it's like, well, I can't do anything else now apart from go and get that bar of chocolate. But what's making me move away from it now is, over these next couple of weeks, I've kind of challenged myself to be in bed for 9:30 every night, and that means that if I have plans or if somebody wants to do something, it means meeting up at 6 o'clock and getting home for 8:30 and starting the wind down. And if they can't meet until 8 p.m, then we'll have to do it another night, and being absolutely regimentally disciplined with that. And what I've definitely noticed is, if I have a bar of chocolate at sort of 9 p.m, never really have problems getting to sleep, but I will definitely, everybody's got wearables these days, and I track my sleep through the Garmin that I have, and there's definitely a lot more restlessness, a lot less deep sleep, a lot less REM sleep on evenings where I've had a bar of chocolate at about 9 p.m. So
it's full of sugar, isn't it?
Exactly, and it makes
full of sugar,
complete sense.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense.
Can I give you a little tidbit for something that I do to myself, and it does make you feel like a bit of a mental person, but is if you're trying to not do something, so like, no, I don't want to eat that, like I'm trying to be good. If you're trying to be good on, say you're on your 5-2, so you're on your good days, and you're like, no, I don't want to eat, like verbalize it,
right?
So be like, because you can.
I'm not going to do that.
I
John.
don't.
Yeah. That's
well, you don't need to add. You don't need to add your. You don't. No, because then you're going full cray.
Yeah.
You don't need to add John, but you can do. But just saying like, no, don't want it. Yeah. Don't want that chocolate. It's bad for me.
Yeah. Because my thing is I can't, like I did it last night. Not last night. The night before last, I bought one of those Tony's Chocolonelys. Big up all the Tony's Chocolonelys fan out there, because I tell you what, that is a serious bar. We were speaking before about Five Guys being the one, and Tony's Chocolonely is the one. The orange one,
And I've not
If
even
you know,
tried
you know.
it. I've not. I don't
Big in
know.
the game.
So I do want to know.
Get involved. But anyway, the point is like I snapped the bar in half and like put half in the cupboard and went and sat in the living room and started watching this movie. I think I was watching The Creator or something. And I ate half the chocolate bar and was like, right, I'm not going to have the other half. But then, you know,
Yeah, you just smash it in.
My
missus is a creature for this.
Yeah.
Like, she has a great physique.
Yeah.
She does train a little bit. She's also just busy as anything.
Yeah.
So busy.
And
so,
good genes. You know, her and her brother, both in really good shape.
But mate, she just goes to the shop. I don't like her going to the shop because of this. And it's back with a dime bar chocolate.
Yeah.
A Galaxy Caramel chocolate. These are big bars as well.
Bars, yeah.
And I'm just like,
and
if it's in the house, this is that's my other tip. Is once it's in, like, if I'm really disciplined in the shop, online shopping, you don't buy any shit that you don't get caught out by little extras. But then the moment it comes in the house, I find it very hard to not eat it.
Yeah.
And
I can't not eat. I'll eat a whole pack of biscuits, mate.
She is just
a whole pack of biscuits.
Like, she has to go to the shop for the holiday cottage to get a few biscuits and stuff for that. And she just comes back, and I'm like, God, like how? And it's really hard. Yeah. That is so. Verbalize it.
Yeah.
Verbalize it, and don't bring it into the house, because if it's not in the house, then you are.
That's what I. That's my
too
downfall.
good.
I don't know how people do that. Like, I've had. For some reason, particularly girlfriends in the past who've been able to just buy a little bar of chocolate, have a couple of squares, put it back in the cupboard,
put
leave
it in the
there
fridge.
overnight. No, people who put it in the fridge can. I don't know. They're weird.
Yeah,
you a fridge chocolate person?
I think with the dark chocolate that I might have a few little blocks of each night. I can put
it's
that
nice
back.
That green and blacks
organic. Yeah. I can just have a few blocks of that. And but also because it's maybe not as sweet. Maybe not as sweet. So what do you mean? Generally chocolate in the fridge? Oh mate, it's mega
really?
Chocolate, but also not in the. I'm either way.
Some people.
I do like it in the fridge.
I used to know somebody who used to put their Mars bars in the freezer, and then they'd get them out and they'd cut them into little segments and eat these frozen pieces of Mars bar like that.
I bet that's nice.
It was quite nice.
I bet it's nice.
But so listen to that thing about the methylation test. So again, don't come to this podcast if you want full science.
Where was that? Was that a Joe Rogan?
It was a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, obviously.
It was a guy called Gary Brecker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's come under a lot of. He's a controversial bloke. You you listen to him and he definitely sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And I think the things that he was saying about the methylation test is all accurate. But he's come under fire. From another so-called expert, calling him out on a few different things. But this is it, isn't it? Do your own research, find out what you think about methyl. I think it's definitely a good bit of advice to find out what your body is good at taking in and what it's not so good at taking in, and dialing your diet up and down based on that. And the other thing that he said, which I thought was quite interesting, was, he said that one of the most important takeaways should be that today, and I agree with this, today should be the day that we all stop drinking tap water direct from the tap.
Oh yeah, you were saying this.
Yeah, and we should be and I definitely think that's
that was
thing.
On that Zach, have you seen that Zac Efron thing about diet and health and longevity? That they were talking about that on there, but
and I think for the sake of 20 quid, I bought one the other day. 20 quid for I mean, you can, like anything, you can kick it out as far as you want and spend hundreds of pounds on these filtration devices, and I have no doubt that they get better with the more that you spend. But I just thought, as a step one, just buy one of those easy, stick them in the fridge door.
Brita
of those.
filters
one of
or
those.
something. Does that actually make a difference? I always thought we had one of them, and then you forget to change the filter, so then it's just
this one that I bought, it came with 9 filters. It was on Amazon for 20 quid. And does it make a difference?
Does it taste,
I don't think it can do any harm.
What is your? I know for the Peak District,
yeah,
where we are, the water here is supposed to be very good because it actually
spring water.
It basically comes filtered through the rock,
yeah,
and then
so
into the reservoirs,
yeah.
and then I'm sure it gets cleaned and whatever.
But I just wonder about the pipings, like in my house.
Well, this
the
is
piping systems. It's
yeah,
like lead pipes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That could take you back. You can go back to kind of like background kind.
Yeah. Sorry about that, ladies and gents. Slight little battery malfunction, but just to round off the point that I was making, which was, well, the first thing that I was saying was, obviously, if there's something that you can do today, which is just to make a positive change, and that's stop. Let this be the first day that you stop drinking tap water, and then also a good thing to do is to add salt to that tap water, to add salt to that filtered water, and a common misconception is that the pink Himalayan salt is the one to use, but it's actually quite dense in heavy metals, whereas what people are saying is the way forward now is to actually use Celtic salt.
Oh, so that's your boy.
That's the boy. Yeah.
Right,
so we're and this information will probably be different in a few months' time. And Matt and I are by no means scientists or geniuses, but we just regurgitate the information that we hear from people that do know what they're talking about.
We're not experts, but we are interested.
We're well read up.
I'm interested in like longevity and just looking after yourself. And another just little tip I'd say is about getting that first drink of water into the day.
Yes.
And we are going to do a podcast on morning routine.
Yes.
But part of mine is water.
Yeah.
And the first thing I do when I get up is drink a pint of water.
Yeah, me too.
Because you're super dehydrated, and just by getting your fluid levels up, it makes you feel better. I can tell towards the end of the day if I've not drank enough water through the day.
Yeah.
Not only through the colour of my piss, but also just through feeling lethargic, feeling tired.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've just said this and it's on there, but again, I just wanted to highlight not feeling overwhelmed with health. And if you're trying to make positive changes with your diet at the moment and your overall health, not feeling overwhelmed, because I think it's easy to listen to things or watch videos and think that you've got to do all these different things. And I think it's important to remember that just doing kind of, if you take one thing from this podcast, take verbalizing your not to eat something and or just drinking enough water or getting a Brita filter, do little steps and then add another one a week later or a few weeks later, and you'll look back and it's that compounding interest.
100%.
That compounding interest of over time you will see improvements in your overall health.
100%. And
what are you gonna, because you kind of wanted to talk about diet today was your kind of topic, because you were conscious that your diet had slipped a little bit. And when I hate the word diet, by the way, because I hate diets. I think you just have to approach it from an overall I'm not on a diet, this is just me now, I'm just trying to eat healthily. What are you gonna, what's your,
I don't know whether my whether it's as just focused on diet as just
cutting out some of the shit, basically,
like the holistic thing, which is some of the things which are really popular at the moment, and I'm hearing people talk about are so I think breath work is very, very important, because it's not just about diet. I think isn't just about, or the subject of diet isn't just about necessarily what you're eating. It's like how you're engaging with the environment, what things you're doing with your body to create a healthy homeostasis. And I think that breath work is something that's really undervalued and can go a long way. I think that, you know, out of my supplements that I take, so I take fish oils, I take collagen, I take a nootropic called Brainzyme, and then I also take a mushroom tablet which is lion's mane and reishi. They really work for cognitive function and for focus, but I think that one of the most important out there, and obviously we live in the UK, so we get periods of time where we don't get lots of sun and we have to supplement with vitamin D, but I think one of the most important things is being able to get some sunlight on your face. Obviously don't look directly in the sun, but looking towards sunlight, and
even on a cloudy day.
That on a cloudy
this is part of the morning routine that we were going to touch on as well. I don't know if we've talked about this already because we've had a technical issue.
Yeah,
but,
and the other thing,
do one on that.
The other thing that this guy was talking about was this thing called grounding, which I'd never heard before.
I saw that. I did see a quick clip of that. I haven't seen the whole podcast, but I did see a clip of that about what barefoot to soil.
Which is crazy. Which is the idea
neutralizing does it neutralize?
Well, it neutralizes the alkaline, and it also balances the pH in your blood. And apparently, you can have alkaline water, and you know it might be less acidic than normal water, and that's fine, but it won't go any way towards balancing the pH in your blood. And I just thought that was interesting.
And the pH is linked to cancer.
All that kind of stuff.
I've read that pH levels can be linked, like high acidity in your blood can lead to be a sign of cancer.
So all those different things, and he basically, you know, to kind of put a cap on the episode, his main takeaways and mine are, for anybody listening to this as well, are, you know, if you can make those changes, you know, do a little bit of breath work first in the morning. So I wake up in the morning and I'll just do, you know, 5 or 6 kind of rounds of my particular style of breath work. You know, there's great books out there. There's The Oxygen Advantage, and there's a book called Breathe by a guy called James Nestor. Do your own research, find out what techniques are the best for you. Different ones do different things. But then there's also that thing about trying to get sunlight. Grounding is an interesting one. I've never tried it. You know, it's something that once
you should try it and come back to
I could do that. But like, you know, like you were saying, it's, you know, do one thing at a time.
Not to feel overwhelmed with stuff.
And the last thing from me is, and I've tried it a couple of times, but I've not had the balls to be continuous and too disciplined with it. But I definitely believe in the research that I've read, is this idea of cold water therapy. 100%.
Well, I've done a bit of cold water plunging in the river. You know, continuously for probably 6 to 8 months at one point, and you can definitely feel the endorphin buzz after getting in almost freezing cold river water.
And there's that, and there's what it does in terms of building up your cold shock proteins, and also it encourages, and again, I'm not a scientist, I'm just regurgitating what I've heard, and it encourages something called brown fat. I don't really know what the research is, but apparently brown fat is better than the typical adipose tissue that you have. So lots of things to think about. You know, stop drinking tap water, breath work, grounding, cold water therapy, getting sunlight in there. But I guess the main takeaway is there's so many different things out there that you could try, but it's about what's right for you.
What works for you,
and what's relevant,
what you can implement easily, and just take small steps, and not try to get overwhelmed and do too many things at any one point. Should we wrap it up there, mate?
I think that's a wrap.
One thing I did just want to say before we go was we'd love some kind of listener questions or any issues that people are kind of Do you feel like a bit of a lost man at the moment? If so, why? We'd love to talk it through. If you think you've got a good talking point for us, we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lost Man episode 000003 in the bag.
Complete.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, brother.
This is the Lost Man podcast, where we embrace the challenges and triumphs of being a modern man in the middle years. Join us as we explore the rugged path of growing older, wiser and bolder in a world that's constantly changing. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Matt. And together we'll navigate this uncharted territory with grit, humour and a whole lot of heart.